Most people think that confidence is something you're born with, or fake it till you make it. But today's guest proves neither. Alyssa is the founder of the American Confidence Institute and the ERG Leadership Alliance. Her work has reached over 1 million leaders at Amazon, MIT, the US Army, and more. And she's delivered 2 TEDx talks, authored more than 8 books, and serves as the official confidence educator for L'Oreal. We're unpacking the science of real confidence, how it's built, how it's broken, and why it might be one of the most under-leveraged advantages in business and in life. And really what caught my attention wasn't just Alyssa's credentials, it was the quiet thread in her work. The idea that confidence isn't a performance, it's a biological process. And once we understand it, I think everything changes. So I want to understand it today. And Alyssa, I'm very glad you're here.
Oh, I love that introduction, Ahmad. Thank you so much for having me.
No, this is a subject that is very important to me. I find confidence to be the make it or break it in many things in life, and business being one of them. So,
Sure.
before we start demystifying confidence and getting into it, I want to rewind perhaps to what story about confidence, um, or lack thereof, did you inherit growing up?
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't even know where to start with that, to be honest with you. That's funny. I'm a New Yorker by birth and was raised in New York. And I think there is something to be said for, and when I say New York, Long Island, Manhattan kind of mentality of very high performance, a lot of very, it was a lot of pressure, to be honest with you, to perform and succeed. And that probably is where much of it pushed me. And I did the path that most people do, which is in that case, you do the best you can in school. I'm also a firstborn, so it's probably part of my genetics in that sense. But get through school, high school, and I'll get into a great college and go down the career track of corporate and make lots of money and do something that sounds really important. And somewhere along that path, I can't exactly pinpoint it, I started to really read at the time, this is a long time ago, books, self-help books and things. So I was just really curious on what makes us decide or not decide to do certain things. Like, what is the difference between somebody who goes into a positive performance versus a negative, maybe even criminal performance route? And that is like a recurring theme in my life that subsequently manifested to where I am now. So, through college, I took a lot of criminal justice. I took psychology, even as a business person. I ended up doing marketing because that seemed to be the meld of those two things, right? Understanding human behavior and business. And did that for 25 years as a corporate marketing officer. Like a lot of people realize that there's more to life than that. So I think that probably is the answer to your question, is this kind of pushing together the pressure of performance with the curiosity of why.
So I love it because that's exactly where I started the question is, or my curiosity. How much does confidence impact performance? Was there a moment where you realized that there was more to performing confidence instead of just like feeling confident?
Absolutely. And, maybe because of that, ability to see some people going left and some people going right, so to speak, all the time, I was like, where does that come from? Like, why? And then I would run into people that were just stunningly different in their confidence, which was they weren't arrogant, they weren't braggy, they weren't loud, they may not even be extroverts. They are just solid people that, kind of just stood out to me. And I used to make it a habit, and I still do to this day, of even when I'm in a crowded area, I went to my nephew's graduation last weekend, and it was 40,000 people in the stadium. You look around and you just see those people. They sit differently, they look differently, they interact differently. I would make an argument that they just have something that we all can sense that's different. And so it was really attractive to me. And then when I got into college, I had the very good luck of taking a course, and it was a bizarre course because it was in the management track, and it was called, I believe, How to manipulate or how to manage people and get them to do anything you want. And the professor never used a textbook, did not have any slides, didn't talk from notes. He just got in the front of the room and he talked, and he taught us all about Abraham Maslow. And then we would go, and our homework was to practice or try, some of these techniques. And I went, oh, I get it. So it was like a light bulb went off, and that combined with the other things I was taking, I kind of thought, all right, motivational science. So I started digging into Daniel Pink and some of those other authors at the time. And again, it was this very much prescriptive, performative, confidence stuff, right? I mean, we didn't know about brain science back then. We had positive psychology, but we didn't really have the social science around it that we do today because of a lot of technology and time and research. So it wasn't until about 15 years ago that while I was still kind of, a hobbyist in this, I had an unfortunate situation that has a really beautiful ending. But my older son, who just turned 26, was diagnosed with a very serious neurological condition. And the short story of it, which is it's a little bit in my TED Talk and a lot in my books, but the short version of it is that after finally getting a diagnosis for it, because I was so unhappy, dissatisfied with the doctors that I was speaking to, like neurology. It almost doesn't matter what country you're in, and the neurologists are top of the doctor's medical food chain, right? We revere them. They know everything, right? And I would sit there and see their very fancy diplomas behind them as they would tell me, and I could see in their eyes, they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And they would try and guess at what, oh, it must be this, or maybe it's this, or try this, and inject him with this, and give him this pill. And I'll be like, what? And what really clinched it was we went to, and I won't name the place because it's a really prestigious place, and it was the head of the neurology department. He goes, I'm going to Google that. And I was like, all right, time out, we're done. Like, that's it. And so it was that moment where I'm like, I got to figure this out myself because these people don't know. And it was lucky because functional MRIs all of a sudden were a big thing, and we had data and research. And so, pulling all these different sciences together, looking at the technology, which was my unique ability because a neurologist at the time wasn't trained in technology, but I understand technology. That was my background, right? So I was really lucky in that sense. The timing was perfect. It was a perfect storm. I then started actually getting calls from all over the world from neurologists like, what's going on here, right? And pieced all this together. So then it became, okay, the psychology, social science work that I had done before, now the technology to show how and why those theories are right, and put it all together to realize how confidence really did work in the human brain and subsequently impacted our behavior. I got that beautiful outcome, and the better outcome, quite honestly, is my son is, like I said, 26. He got his master's in school guidance counseling and works in an underserved school here in the Massachusetts area. And he's also a tennis pro. So he has,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, he still has the condition. He'll have it the rest of his life. But not only was it kind of tamed, but he's really overcome it and now uses it as an advantage to help other people, other children in particular, who may have some kind of challenge.
Wow. It's incredible how circumstances in life stacks up to bring you a different perspective, a different outlook, and that gives you the unique advantage to understand a particular field. And in your case, confidence was such a driver. And I'm curious about your son. I used to be a professional tennis player too.
Oh, nice.
And confidence was one of those massive gaps between being number one and being number 500. Everybody at the top I would say every professional tennis player is basically the same. They're not any different. Technically, they don't have any faults. Technically, they don't do double faults. They don't throw the ball to the net. They never miss. It's like you get to a point you can't miss. You can hit a dime on the other side of the court. But really what differentiates is the mentality and how you approach the game. How did you teach your son confidence?
How did I teach my son? Well, I guess my son and all the other people subsequently, you said over 1 million people. It's been a lot of workshops and a lot of keynotes that get into the details. But again, I'm going to kind of give you the short version and then you can poke deep as you want. But
Thank you.
Confidence, as you said earlier in the intro, it's not a genetic thing. You're not born with a confidence gene or not. And of course, it can be influenced by your environment, by the people who show up and you choose as role models, as some of the examples I gave before. But neurologically speaking, biologically speaking, confidence definitionally is a choice. And what I mean by that is, in any given situation, whether it is to accept an invitation to do a podcast, the next text we write, the way that we pick up the phone, the way we interact with any human being, the way we think about ourselves, those are actually complex decisions that are in our brain that we pull all kinds of data together. So it could be data from our experiences, it could be data that's coming in new. I mean, if you've ever walked somewhere and it had a whiff of something and it reminds you of maybe grandma's cooking or whatever it be, new data that comes in like that, new learning. It could be just an emotional reaction to something, but that's data in your brain. And subsequently, when we have that data come together, our brain does a calculation, right? It looks at the data. Now, some of that data you might say is what I call subjective data, right? It's not numbers and graphs, but it's, I remember that smell, or I remember doing this last time and I had that outcome. So all that data comes in and we make a decision, a choice about what to do with the data. Now, all this can be split second, nanosecond in your brain, and it can also be very subconscious. In other words, you're not necessarily consciously thinking about it, but it's happening. And so in a moment where I'm about to hit the tennis ball, in your example, you may not be saying, do I feel good about the shot or not? But there's that decision going in your brain, I can do this. Or I know how to do this. I know what the outcome's going to be. And you can make it positive, I got this. Or you can be like, oh, last time I got this one, I screwed it up. And that decision is what drives your confidence. Again, at a biological, neurological level, I'm very oversimplifying it. What messes us up constantly, and why I say messes us up, whether you're on the tennis court, you're in the boardroom, you go to your family, you say, I want to start a new business, is this sense that if I make this decision, whether it's left or right, what is everybody going to think about me? It's this need to be accepted, to belong. It goes back to Abraham Maslow, 1940 research, right? And if I don't make the right decision, I'm going to be a loser. And that, unfortunately, is what kills confidence, is that fear of not belonging. So if you look at it in that light, I know it's kind of a weird thing on the tennis court, but it's one of those, I suck at tennis. Last time I missed the shot. It's all kind of tied to that. People are not going to like me. It really kind of kills confidence. And that's why it can't be performative. It can't be something you just put on like a piece of clothing. You have to have your brain really believe, I got this. And the only way to do that is to train it to realize, I can do this. So long answer, I realized, to how did I train my son? How do I train other people? Part of it is reframing a lot of things that we believe that are false. And some of it is societal beliefs. Some of it is self-belief. Some of it is, my parents told me X, my teacher told me Y. And overcoming that. And I'm going to give you an interesting example, because this is something that I've been working on for probably my whole life, is I remember, and you, that's the other thing, you remember these moments like crystal clear. Can't remember what you had for breakfast, but you remember a moment from like 30 years ago, right? I remember a relative telling me I couldn't sing and I was tone deaf. Now, between you and I'm a pretty good singer, but that really ruined it for me. So what would I do? I would hide in the choir, because I love to sing, but I was like, in the choir, nobody's going to notice as much. I'm a musician. My families are all musicians. I always would sing backup, right? And finally somebody said, oh, you have the most beautiful voice. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, it was like that 20-year-old person coming back and being like, whoa. And it takes a lot of conviction on my part, like I would say, like to go and put myself in front of the mic. but I've been doing that consistently, and nobody's walked out of the room. Nobody's come up to me and said, you shouldn't sing. But those kinds of moments when you have that false belief, when somebody puts it in your brain, or something happens and you're like, oh, I suck. I'm a sucky tennis player. I can't sing, whatever it is. You have to prove to your brain that's fake. That's wrong. That's not true. And once you get over that, you feel good about it, right? You feel, wait a minute, that person was full of crap. I'm a good singer. I got this.
I find incredibly profound your approach, because you mentioned self-help books. You mentioned books that just say, you got this, or confidence is something you wear, or if you smile, you feel better. But you're going it from a science perspective. And the science perspective is, I find it much more undeniable. It's not like, oh, just put it on and work. And as you were talking and saying these examples, I remember when I was a kid, and I could read people when they were typing. Like I could spell as they were typing. I could read what they were typing. And this teacher said that's impossible to do. And since he said that, I could never do it again. And it was like, but I remember I was able to do this. Like when people were typing down their password, I was like, I got it. I don't know if it was like curiosity or my mind or how, like people were like, but no one can do that. And I was like, well, I just saw you type your password. I know it. It works. But since someone says no, then your brain automatically, you believe you cannot. But then you're saying that biologically, neurologically, there are things that disconnect or connect depending on your circumstances. And after teaching so much science and confidence, what is perhaps the hardest, most irrational thing to change that people still don't understand?
Hardest, most irrational thing. Well, I don't know if I think there's two things that come to the prefrontal. That's this piece here that does all the confidence processing. I think one of them, and very much what you just said, is when an expert, and it could be, or an authority, I should say, when somebody that you think is smarter than you are, that knows whatever it is they're giving you information, advice. It could be a financial advisor, it could be a teacher, a doctor, right? We kind of assume it's true. And I'm sorry to break anyone's bubbles, but it is often not. And this is the reason, right? Like they go to a school of wherever it is, they learn their trade in a tunnel. And the world changes fast. If, you have, this is the founder show, right? Like if I listened to all the people that told me that my business was ridiculous, we wouldn't be here. But you know what? Ha ha ha, multi-million-dollar later, they were wrong. And so I think part of this is, yes, somebody who has authority, you should take their advice and listen to it carefully, but don't assume that it's always correct. Don't assume it's always true. And not to be cynical, not to be like a naysayer all the time, but if it's important information or something, just take it as a data point. Don't take it as the data point. And I think that's really important for people to kind of let go of some of this, angst that people throw on us, including or maybe especially our parents, our relatives, right? We take them as authorities, and believe me, you get older and you realize your relatives aren't any smarter than you are, right? And that gives me the second piece of that, which again, it was a little bit of what you said, is if there's another human that has done it, there's a high probability that I can do it too. And I don't mean me, Alyssa, that anyone can do it. So, maybe we're not all built like Michael Phelps with long flipper arms and things like that. So maybe we can't swim as well as he can, but there's every reason to believe that we could be competitive swimmers if we really wanted to be. And so I think that's the corollary there, is that the only way to change your brain and behavior is if you want to. If you have a will, there's a way. If there's no will, there's no way. And so question, what's the underlying thing that's saying to you, I don't want to be a professional tennis player. I don't want to be a professional swimmer, if that's really what's holding back the confidence to be there. Because the and you probably know, tennis players are such a great example. I'm so glad we could talk about it. But tennis players are arrogant. They are all arrogant. That's just part of I think most professional athletes are. You kind of have to be. And the reason I say that is because they have to have the attitude of, why not me? why can't it be me? I put my pants on like everyone else does. I get up in the morning and brush my teeth. Like, why not me? I'm human too. And I think that's a really healthy, if it's managed, right? Arrogance is not something I'm going to advocate, but if that attitude of why can't I do it? I mean, that's the most powerful thing, whether you're an entrepreneur or a parent.
Let's go to entrepreneurs and you being a business owner yourself. Most entrepreneurs are delusional, um, and it's good. And I think when an entrepreneur is delusional, they're on the right track. When they're too realistic, I think it's not going to work because, and this is just my point of view. Most people say, "Oh, focus on the small wins and blah blah." But I think like what you're not building your own company for a small win. Building your own company is for a big win. And perhaps this comes from my tennis background, but when I set a goal, it's so big that people laugh at it. And then I'm like, okay, that's the right goal. Because if I said, oh, I'm in the investment world, I'm gonna find 10 houses to buy and I'm gonna fix them and then I'm gonna flip them. And if someone says, oh, that sounds reasonable, I'm like, no, that's not too big. It's not big enough. I need to do something that actually makes me excel because that's when I'm gonna learn, that's gonna be outside my comfort zone. That's when I'm gonna have to stretch myself to a point where I'm seeking for advice. And like you said, if someone else has done it, and not only 10, they've done 100 or 1,000 or maybe a high rise. And like there's so many other people that you can follow and model yourself around that it's part of being a little bit delusional that makes you get there. But what would you tell entrepreneurs that have great ideas that are laughed at by their family, that are uh, perhaps ignored by their friends, and this is number one complaint of entrepreneurs, like my friends don't buy from me. Like, what would you tell them so that they can face this rejection and keep going?
Well, it's funny because I'm doing a talk next weekend at a entrepreneurial a conference. I'm the keynote there, and one of the things that I've written many times is your friends and your family are not your customers. So just again, it's a data point. Okay. Most of the time it's because they're jealous or they're trying to protect you, but it just comes out in this kind of negative, you'll never succeed kind of language. So, it's not unusual is the best thing I can say about it. I will go back though to your comment about dreaming big and being delusional. It's a funny choice of words. I mean, I think there is a, vision, dreaminess about founders. And the thing that, I went to a very prestigious business school and, we're trained to run big multinational companies and assume that bigger is better and richer is the goal. And I kind of graduated with a very different perspective and path. I don't think it's necessarily male versus female, but I think there are some other nuances that are important as a founder. And one of those, I mean, this is not my first rodeo. It's the first startup. I've done many. I've sold many. And perhaps because I'm a little older than you, my friend, I think part of what my journey really took me to is I want to do something in my lifetime, because I only get one of them, that is fulfilling to me financially, but equally fulfilling to me as a human being. And so not every entrepreneur is going to necessarily want to go venture capital. The statistics show that at least most female entrepreneurs will never borrow a penny. And interestingly enough, I bootstrapped this business, and now it's the multi-million-dollar global leader in a particular industry. So we have 50 employees around the world. We're not small, but I have no desire, to be honest with you, like 500,000 employees. That's not my goal. My goal is to do really good work and leave a really good mark on the planet, and we're doing that. Is that any less of a success than somebody who, than Zuckerberg or somebody? I don't know. I don't choose to be him. So, part of this is also being really clear, not part of it. It is the secret, is if you want to, when you're making those decisions, as I said, if you really want to understand confidence, here's where the decisions get boundaried. And this is where people fail, is when you're very clear about what's important to you. And the important to you means your values, your needs, and your wants. I really want to be the best tennis player in the world. I really need this to be happy for my own well-being, and I value this particular thing, whatever it is. I value having a mark on society that's positive, right? Those kinds of things, when you're very clear about those things, those provide the boundaries to your brain to say, this is why I'm making this decision. It's the justification for why I go left or right. And again, it's all subconscious, but if you don't know those things, you wind up making decisions based on an emotion or based on something society told you or based on the fact that somebody said you should go big or go home. And you end up in a place where you're like, ugh, that's not who I want to be. Not what I want to be, but who I want to be. And that kills confidence. So the good news and the bad news is that there's ways to find your values, needs, and wants anytime. But the bad news is that it usually doesn't happen until you're about 60 years old on average from the research we've done 10 years now. And so, unfortunately, the entrepreneurial space is loaded with a lot of young people who are delusional. I agree with you on that. Because they think big and they don't have the training, they don't do the research, they think they know everything, and that's why the failure rate is so damn high. But if you count on people who really are grounded, and one of the things that I'm really interested in are entrepreneurs over the age of 50, because they have a lot more of those boundaries defined for themselves. It doesn't make them any more or less aspirational. It certainly doesn't make them any more delusional. It makes them more grounded in, why am I doing this? And what is it that I want to do? And I think when you have that, then you can build a really solid business model. And that, to me, is the secret of the business success.
That's super, super profound and enlightening and at the same time worrying. And I see where you're coming from, because I definitely see the ones who don't succeed are maybe like a shattered heart, a dog between the tail between the legs, like a dog. Like they feel their confidence is shattered. Or the other side, which is that Chinese proverb, like, be careful with what you wish for because it might come true.
Right.
And then you have this huge company and you have all this money and you have all this stuff and you feel completely empty. You're soulless. You're not doing what you want. So how do we, if your data says that at 60, 50, people start realizing that their aspirations need to be more grounded, or perhaps their confidence is grounded on more impact or depth or expertise, how do we bring that age down? How does someone like me at 37 become, like, shorten that gap?
Well, part of it is when you create a pitch, and I teach pitch at MIT and at Wharton and places like this, and often with older people. So it's not just, 20-year-olds, but 37 years old, 47, 57-year-olds, it's right. If you're really, truly honest with yourself, first, why am I doing this? Why do I believe in this? It kind of cracks me up when people have these business ideas and they get all excited about it. Oh, the world needs another whatever. I keep sipping on this water bottle. How many water bottles do we need in this world, right? Seriously. Right.
Same one.
Right. Okay. But needless to say, I have about 10 other kinds, right? It's like, come on. But somebody's going to, Shark Tank, you need another water bottle, right? If you really are honest with yourself, that person who's inventing another water bottle, it's not because they were trying to make the world better. It's because they want money. They're rich. They think there's a niche. Okay. Super honest with yourself. Why are you doing this? I think that's the best, easiest place to start. Wanting more money isn't a bad thing, right? I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do. I think that we all need money to live, and quite honestly, with more money you can do more things, whether they are charitable or otherwise, but be really bloody honest with yourself. And I think if we're that honest with ourselves, most of the time we're going to say, because I want to be special. I want to make more money. I want people to think that I'm important and I'm successful. If that's the truth and you're okay with that, great. But if you look at that and go, ugh, how are you going to convince an investor? How are you going to convince a customer? How are you going to convince anybody that what this is something that they should buy, let alone invest in? Because if you don't believe it for good reason, why should they? And people don't do that. They don't do that. They come with their charts and their graphs, and this is the market share we're going to get, and this is, the niche, and this is why this is our product against the company. They do all that, but at the end of the day, I had a real awakening one time. Not an awakening, it was confirmation, I would say, with a guy that runs the largest angel fund in the Boston area. And he said to me, and actually his name was very similar to yours. He says to me, I come to these pitches, they put up their slides, they hand me a handout, and I don't tell them that I'm blind. He's legally blind. I mean, he can see where he's going, so it's very misleading, but he can't see the slides. He says, I'm watching their body language because I can see right away if they believe in what they're doing or not. I don't need graphs. So there you go.
It's so empowering, and it brings me so many memories of my first startup. I call it the startup of my heart, and my second startup, the startup of my brain, because my first startup was an Andean grain company. I loved nature. Ecuador has the most amount of sunlight in the world. So the UV rays are incredible, which means the agriculture is better. So did this huge startup, and it was a great success. And I was 40 pounds overweight. I was depressed, and I remembered flying with my dad. He was sitting next to me, and I was like looking outside the window, and he's like, "What the hell's wrong with you? Like, what? You look like a lost dog. Like, what's happening?" And I said, "I'm not happy. I did all this, and I am not happy. I'm running in as fast as I can, but not moving anywhere, and I do have impact, but it's meaningless to me because it doesn't. I'm not good at this. I don't understand what I'm doing. Like I got like half imposter syndrome, half I had to be sort of like a psychopath, like I didn't have feelings for it, and thank God I was able to sell it. It was a gift that came, and then when I had to start over, it was really like, okay, who not. And then I see this with my friends. When I sold my company, they were like, "What are you gonna do? What 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 are you gonna do?" And it would torment me. It would torment me to the point that I didn't want to do any social things because I didn't know. And last time that everyone was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, I saw a gap in the market of this Andean grain stuff and the sun and Ecuador and export, and I lived in Boston too, so I knew how like superfoods were growing, and it was just a movement, and it was just but it wasn't me until my mom, who's very wise, told me it doesn't matter what you do, it just matters who you want to be. Who do you want to be in this world? And that gave me the openness and clarity to say, I want to be an investor. This is who I always wanted to be. And since then, I feel like a fish in water, whereas with my first startup, I felt like a fish out of water. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, what am I talking about? What is agriculture to me? I don't know anything about agriculture. I studied statistical modeling and entrepreneurship at Babson, which you should know. It's a school in Boston
I spoke
area.
at their entrepreneurship conference too. I love it. Yeah.
It's a great school. But now I do something that's actually mine. So how much of what you teach is being yourself, or finding yourself, your need, like you said before, your needs, wants, and desires, or how much of confidence comes from being yourself or becoming yourself?
Well, first of all, we teach a lot of it, and it sounds very woo-woo, but it doesn't have to be woo-woo. And what I mean by that is understanding what your values are and who you are is a really simple exercise. Write your own eulogy. Sit down and write your eulogy. And I spell it Youlgy. So it's, if you were dead or you died, and somebody else has to give your eulogy, what do you want them to say? Write it down. Like take 10 minutes, write down 5 sentences. That'll answer the question right there. So, it's a very important part of creating the boundaries. Now, as far as you said something there that, again, I say that confidence isn't a result of success, it's a requirement.
Wow.
Right? I mean, and the reason I say that is time and time again, you don't get confident from winning things on its own. You have to be confident, like whether you're on the tennis court or in the entrepreneurial space, right? Tiger Woods cracks me up because, how many times has his career gone up and down? His skill set didn't change. It was just because his mental confidence was all over the place. And you can kind of know what's going on in his personal life if you just look at his statistics. So you have to be confident to go into something to really be successful, I believe. You can get lucky, yeah, sometimes, but luck isn't something I like to invest in, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to invest in an entrepreneur to thinking that, well, maybe they're in the right place at the right time. That it's too risky. But if they really have, Again, if they really feel that this is something that's successful and they give me enough reason why, as well as, the emotional qualitative stuff as well as the market stuff, yeah, that's the connection. If they don't give me the piece of why they're going to be successful, not because they have a great team and everyone went to MIT, blah, 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 yeah, great. How do I know you're not going to abort? How do I know that when the times get hard, because they always do, entrepreneurial life is not easy. We know that, right? It's easy to walk away and take another job that pays more, but if your heart and soul is tied to this mission, it's not so easy to walk away. So that's important data for me to know as an investor, right?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people ignore those things, and as a result, that's why they don't succeed personally or professionally or both.
It's super profound. As an investor, my due diligence goes through sponsorship first. Who is the person? Because if they're a tourist, I call people who are transient, come and go, do this when it's good, do that when it's not, leave and come. I'm like, those are tourists. I absolutely say no. But when I see conviction and unfair advantage, even because they have something that makes them better at what they do, then I look at the more profound things.
Yeah.
But is this something that, and obviously things can change over time, so is this something that you need to be coached in, or get back to center, or how do you keep your confidence performing confidence consistently?
Well, first of all, it can't be consistent. It's, I'm looking at the graphs behind your head, and if you think of a bell curve, standard decision-making bell curve, you probably remember from Babson, the tails get cut off at the end because those are the confidence intervals. We say, on any given day, I'm going to be right 80% of the time, and 20%, 10% on this side, 10% on that side. Something's going to go wrong. I'm going to have not good data. I'm going to make a bad decision. I didn't have enough sleep the night before. There's all kinds of factors that are going to make my performance not so great. So 80% of the time, I'm confident that I can do it, and I'm going to give myself a little leeway. 20% of the time, maybe not, and that's okay. I'm going to lose some games. I'm going to lose some matches. It's all right. It doesn't mean I'm a terrible tennis player. It just means they're in those tails, the confidence intervals on the end. This applies to anything in the laboratory, in investments, betas and alphas that's what it is, right? There's a risk factor that I could be wrong, and that's okay. Allow yourself to be wrong. Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to be who you are without worrying about the implications, and that's part of it. So when we teach it, it's not, yes, it's awareness of your values, needs, and wants and things like that. It's awareness of certain people. I mean, how many people in your life, I'm sure you have a couple, I have a couple, family, friends, others, that anytime I'm with them, it makes me a little itchy, like a little uncomfortable. Know who those people are, because when you walk in the room, that's what's going to happen, and you come more prepared. So there's things like that we help people identify, be more self-aware. But more importantly, that is what we call these mind shifts. Now, people, mindsets and things, sure, but it's not that complicated. It's a mind shift, right? Don't wait until be accomplished to be confident. That's not how it works. You got to start with confidence, and the more you do, you'll just strengthen and build confidence. And it's more like, I told myself so, right? Yeah, I knew I could do it. Great. So that's part of the process, is these mind shifts. Another really simple mind shift is when you wake up tired because you didn't sleep well, you didn't sleep enough or whatever, note it. You may not be able to take a nap that day, an extra cup of coffee may not be enough, whatever it is, but I'm tired today, because a tired brain does not make those decisions as effectively. You need that sleep to get your brain in full decision mode. And you know this as an athlete, if you don't sleep the night before, you're gonna have a tough game. And a lot of it is because your brain is not fully fueled. So that makes it a little easier during the day. Like, you know what? I'm not going to make this decision today. I'm not going to send the email. I'm just going to let it sit in my inbox, in my drafts for a little while. Those kinds of decisions give you more confidence, because you're like, you know what? Today's not the day I'm going to take those risks because my brain is not fully fueled. So those kinds of things we can teach you to do. Doesn't take a lot of energy, does it? Doesn't take time. It's a mind shift. And there's
Is it
a couple of things.
I love it that you're giving us some tips and definitely things that we need to be aware of. And I wish I had your knowledge when I was playing, I probably would have been a better a better player. Because it is, and I like that you said it's not a mindset, it's a mind shift. It's really understanding your circumstances, and it's a bell curve. It's never going to be 100% there. What I know that this might be a difficult question to answer succinctly, but what is your current definition of confidence, and how is it different from maybe self-esteem and arrogance, which you used before? Like a tennis player has to be arrogant, thinking that they can win every match, and they have to be in order to be there. But how is it different to be confident versus arrogant or have self-esteem?
All right. So the technical definition, I say technical, dictionary definition of confidence is the certainty about the truth of something. Certainty about the truth of something. So my famous or infamous example is I'm sitting outside of 45 minutes outside of Boston. I look out the window. It's a little gray today. I know that the weather report on my phone said there's a good chance of rain. My hair is back today because it's crazy, because my hair usually tells me if it's going to rain or not, depending on if it's curly or frizzy or whatever. Like, there's all these data points that I can tell you that I am confident that it's going to rain. Now, again, bell curve, little intervals at the end. I could be wrong. My hair could be a little excited, right? It could be a lot of reasons why it doesn't rain, but I'm confident it's going to rain. So if I go out later, I'm probably going to grab an umbrella or something, right? So that decision drives my behavior. What the dictionaries don't have is, in the sense that I said it's not consistent, confidence is binary in that you are either confident or not. I'm sort of confident. That's not an accurate phrase. You either, yes, it's going to rain, or no, it's not going to rain, because the decision is yes or no. And again, those boundaries of, how do I feel about this personally? That kind of guides the whole decision process. So what we don't do is we don't say, you know what, those tails are there, those confidence intervals. So I feel confident enough. I could be wrong. It might rain, but I'm going to take my umbrella anyway, because I'm confident that it's likely that it's going to rain. So that word enough is missing in the vocabulary. Right? Mm-hmm. You don't say I'm kind of confidence, but I am confident means you have enough confidence that the answer is X. Now, okay, very clinical, all great. Tennis. I'm confident that I'm a good player and I could win this match. Why? Because I beat this person before, I've been practicing, I feel good, I got enough sleep, all those data points. I'm confident that I'm going to beat this person. That's good confidence, but it sounds arrogant when I say it, doesn't it? Or you look at some of the tennis players and are like, well, I'm Pete Sampras, I'm going to beat anyone. So there's an arrogance in the data points that come together that say to that person, I'm going to nail this. It sounds arrogant. It's not. It's the data that's coming together in the head. Now, where we really define arrogance in the general spectrum, right? That person's arrogant. They're arrogant because they're not really confident, but they're trying to put on an air that says to the world, I got this. That's the arrogance that we don't like. That's the arrogance that is so disgusting. And I don't even make a political statement about it, but people who are like, they're strutting around and they think they're all that and then some, and they're not. And we all know it. They don't want you to know it, so they're going to be arrogant. So what's the behavior? They're bullies. They become the person that makes everyone else feel less than because it makes them feel better. That's arrogance. It's confidence without the data, without the reality, the inside knowing that they can do it. They're faking it. The other side of that spectrum is overconfidence, is the people who think they can do it and they really have no basis to be able to do it. And unfortunately, a lot of young people are in that. It's not necessarily bad, but it can be very dangerous. I can drive the car. Don't worry about it. I was 20 once too, my friend, right? So overconfidence, they don't have any data, but they think they can do it. They sincerely believe they can do it. Arrogance, they really don't think they can do it, and they're trying to fake it. And that comes back to something else you said in the beginning, fake it till you make it. Baloney. You can never fake it. People always know it. You know it. And because you know it, because your brain's like, you can't do this, just fake it. Guess what? You're never going to do it. You're never going to get over that hump of, I can really do it. Because you're always going to have that imposter syndrome.
Going back to something that I feel we can go a little bit deeper on is, you said parents are usually the first ones to kill confidence, or perhaps tell you something that's wrong, or the person, your family member that said, you can't sing. What can we do as parents, as mentors, as persons of authority do to not kill confidence, but to help people discover their own, become confident, or get to that confidence level? Or how can we give feedback so that we don't kill things that shouldn't be killed?
Oh gosh, well, it's a huge conversation, but I'll give you the highlights. Number one is tuck away your own jealousy. Number two is recognize that what was dished onto you that didn't serve you well, don't give it to somebody else. Don't dish it onto somebody else, right? I'll never tell somebody they can't sing, even if I think they're a terrible singer, because you know what? If they really want to sing, the world should hear their voice. You know, like just be really self-aware of the things that hurt your confidence, and you know, it stops here, right? So I think most of the time, our jealousy, our envy of somebody, though, really gets in our way. Like, you know, I don't want you to be a successful entrepreneur, so I'm going to tell you you're crazy.
Your idea's terrible.
Yeah. And as parents, you know, we're not trained on that. We're not trained on how to deal with all that as people. You know, it's hard. And stuff that was dished onto us is learned, then becomes learned behavior. That is stuff that, you know, it just kind of dictates our responses. I mean, you're in a restaurant and you see a parent yell at a child. You don't think that child someday is going to yell at theirs? Of course they are, you know, or slap them across the head. You know, the other side of it, again, you know, I'm always looking at the extremes sometimes just because it's so visible, is when your child does, or when your employee, or when your friend does something great, genuinely congratulate them. That was awesome. And then tell them why it was awesome. Ahmad, this was such an interesting conversation because it was so real based on our experiences. It's so rare that I get to have a podcast where I actually talk like, you know, deep. That kind of feedback is so much more important than you did a great job. Oh, you're awesome. That's fantastic. Right? Like, because that's so superficial, but they can't repeat that. They don't know what to do with awesome. They know what to do with we got real, and that, you know, you're giving them real feedback so they can repeat that. So that's part of it as well, is being honest. And I guess one last piece on that is don't make it about you, right? Your kid did great. Oh, I'm so proud. No, you did great. That's so awesome. Now, after that, you know, that makes me so proud. Great. But tell them why they're awesome first. I have friends, and I'm sure I'm not alone. You know, you say something, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, and I did that, or I'm going here. Like, don't one up, don't own it, don't take credit for somebody else's success. Give it to them and tell them why you think it's so awesome. And if we just did that, we'd have happier workplaces, we'd have happier households, we'd have happier relationships. I mean, it's a massive impact with such a small change in mentality. This is a visual website podcast, so I'm going to show you. You're probably like, what the heck is this on my chair? I found this T-shirt the other day, and I'm like, I think I want to tattoo this on everyone. But here's the T-shirt. I'm going to stand up so you can see it. The front of it says, can you read it? It may be backwards in the screen.
You matter.
Okay, and this is what it says on the back of it. Move my mic out of the way. To the person
behind me,
go ahead.
You are amazing, beautiful, and enough. Remember that.
If we could say that to somebody every day, we'd have world peace. That's my I'm sticking with that.
I agree that it should be tattooed, or at least on someone's shirt, so you remember it. Such profound, and definitely something I want to remember, because I have people around me. I have nieces and nephews, and I don't want to, like, the Ashrafis, my family, we are not musicians. We are not. And but my nephew loves music, and so I never want to be like, and I'm not going to repeat that ever to him, because or hopefully he doesn't see this podcast. He's two. But I know that he, because I might kill his confidence, and I don't want to do that. And when I work with entrepreneurs, or I'm in the investment space, I love your idea and of giving feedback to them, putting them in the spotlight. And I sound like, oh, me, and one up, because then it's like, what? I can't use anything from that. Really profound advice. Last question, which I'd love to know, is you've had an amazing career. You've helped and impacted thousands of people. You've definitely impacted me today.
Thanks.
and gave me so much information. And the reason I do this is selfishly I like to learn. But what is something that maybe perhaps a future bet you're currently making on yourself, on your work, or on the world?
A future bet?
Yeah, that you're quietly making.
Future bet. Wow. I'm not a betting person. Like I work really hard for my money and I want my money to do some good things out there. So I'm very strategic with how I spend it. I know it sounds like a conservative thing to say. I take a lot of risks, but not with my bets, so to speak. But I think in light of what you're asking is not so much a financial bet as it is maybe a hope. I started American Confidence Institute because I knew that this was like profound and so needed in all aspects of life. And then as a result of that, I ended up creating a second company, which a lot of people told me I was delusional. But the ERG Leadership Alliance now has about 50 million people it impacts because we are supporting underserved people in larger organizations that never had business school training. They didn't go to Babson, they didn't go to Wharton, right? But they are now in positions where they're leading groups, particularly underserved populations. And, we're giving them that accelerated MBA training so that they can lead those groups really effectively. And so perhaps profoundly, because at the time we're talking now, my hope is that we can really swing the pendulum to a place where people feel that sense of belonging, that they know that they matter, and it doesn't matter who they are, what their skin color, experience, where they were born. And I don't want to sound like a raging liberal for the sake of liberalism, but I think, for humanity's sake, we have to raise people's confidence. That's what this is all about. And it saddens me that we've gone to a place where bullying is revered, because that's not good for anybody. That's just not good for anyone. So my hope is that we can tell more people that they matter, that they're important, that their voices should be heard, that their hearts are and hopes are as valuable as everyone else's, and then make good on that. And I say that to somebody who's doing investing, like the investment community had a terrible track record in that as well, right? It's not just politics and corporate life, it's everywhere. Like we are just not seeing the potential in people because of our own sense of fear and a lack of confidence in ourselves, not them. So I hope that we can change that. And I'm working as hard as I know how to and investing every penny I've got to do that.
Amazing. I'm glad I asked that question. Incredibly profound, and definitely want to keep in touch. Hopefully we can do this again in person or in 5 years so that we can see where you're going. But I'm sure that just impacting people and making them more confident is making the world a lot better. So I want to thank you again for coming. I'm very, very honored and humbled to hear your teachings firsthand and asking you all my curiosities. I'm sure I really enjoyed it. So thank you again for coming.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it so much.